What is your message of your pay stub?
I did what I felt at that time while creating this art. So you can see that I felt controlled by society and how being different from others is a bad thing.
So essentially you're trying to send out a message that society does have control over how we feel and makes us feel like we're different.
Yes.
So how did you portray this?
So I portrayed this by showing the marionette and how it's being controlled by society and how the marionette is being different. Like you can see that at the top it says society and it was all grey.
So did you feel that the words society needed to be there? Or if without those words people may have picked up a different message from your piece?
It kind of had to be there. That was my main thing. Like it wouldn't look as good without the society. Like I could have used a hand or anything to represent a person, but I was thinking that's kind of overdone as well with the hand and everything.
So tell me with the scissors, why did your marionette have scissors?
I wanted the marionette to have scissors because I wanted to have like a positive vibe in the paste up, as in it is possible that the marionette will free from society, but it doesn't show that on the paste up. It just kind of assumes that it might. Like, it's about how the marionette tries to cut themselves off from society, but then society manipulates the marionette so well that it doesn't allow the marionette, since like they're taking the control on their hand.
So your scissors is almost a symbol of freedom.
Yeah, it is.
So trying to break free from the control of society.
Yeah, I had an emphasis on scissors to make it bigger, if you know what I mean.
So do you personally feel like you're almost trying to break free from this hold that society has on you?
Yes, I feel that way.
Why?
I just feel controlled by everyone around me and how they put pressure on you, how they want you to be in a certain way.
So do you think it has any particular aspects, like maybe looks or what you own or where you spend most of your time?
Yeah, I think like I was trying to include every single piece because we're different in many ways. Like we look different, we have different interests, we're like this, we're like that. Like I was trying to keep it broad in a way.
But what about personally? What did you personally contribute on how you felt? Like you were obviously driven to like do this issue because part of you.
I kind of felt every bit like that we just sat there, went into it. Like I definitely go with looks, personality, wealth. Well, it's just stereotypes that we get from society. That what really annoys me as well. Since like we say that a girl should play with dolls and a guy should play with cars, but that's not true. Like
so
we're free. Like we should be free to do whatever we want.
Building certain rules that we need to follow.
Yeah, like
which leads back to control.
As nearly as they have expectations from us.
Yeah.
How we should be, but no one should be expecting from us how they want us to be like.
Yes, so society's putting rules in place for us to follow, and so through your piece, your society was very block grey and it was quite dull, and it was sort of it was a staple on the word society and how just plain it was. But then your marionette was full of colour and different textures and
different,
yeah, you had loads of different things going on. So for you, you were sort of relating that back to all the uniqueness of everyone that everyone should have. Like everyone should be allowed to, like boys should wear pink, girls should be allowed to wear blue. There shouldn't be any rules set in place. So I think, do you think you put your message out there?
In a way I did, but after a while it got taken down, so it didn't stay up there for long.
Why do you think it got taken down?
I just personally, what I thought is that we're putting something into school about being controlled. What I was trying to get across, society kills us our personality by putting the pressure on us. We become people that we don't want to be. Like, we have a mask over ourselves, that who we are in school and then who we are at home. People can take different things differently. We're not the same. It's all about how we interpret things that we see.
Yeah, so there's different perspectives.
Yeah, different perspectives. But I still feel like I should have the right to say how I feel, and everyone has that right. Like,
Yeah, you made your pay stub. I guess, like, you put your personal twist on your pay stub, yeah, but again, we need to take into consideration the audience that we're, you know, letting it out to. But at the same time, you were expressing an issue that was so popular that it was completely, like, reasonable to have it hanging because your audience was like teenagers. So for your pay stub to be getting taken down for something that was interpreted the wrong way, but do you think, like, fight for your pay stub to go back?
I would put it up, but I'd be kind of afraid of the consequences that you might get. But not all of the people know it was mine. Okay, so Roisin, so do you know the way I used the scissors as a symbol of freedom? And you had a pay stub done on the same team as me. So did you use any symbols, or?
I guess my pay stub wasn't exactly the same theme as yours. It wasn't really intended to be a pay stub. It was just a piece that I had done in my sketchbook that was personal to me and that I did in a time where I felt like I needed to express myself. And I guess in the end it turned out to be something that could be very relatable to a lot of people. And regards to symbols, I used an anchor, which I think was one of the key symbols in my piece because it represented the weight that society or any pain can put on a person. And my piece was like a sea scene, like the ocean, like how vast it is and how deep you can sink. And I had a hand with strings of the anchor, and on the other end having the anchor in the mind of a head that was sinking below the water. And to me it was showing how something, it could have been anything depending on who was looking at the piece. The hand didn't have to be society. It can relate to your theme that society controls us, but the hand for me it wasn't society. It's not something that I'm personally, like, offended by or anything. For me it was just a huge bunch of emotions that I had no control over, and instead were being controlled by just the power that they had over me. And the anchor was the weight that brought me down, and having the head underneath the ocean, it was like the more control that I lost, the deeper I fell under.
Okay. Is there more of a positive message in the anchor as well? Because what I would get is, well, not what I get, but when I think of an anchor, I think of strength and how people can be, you know, getting over their bad times. Was that meant to be that in a way, or?
Well, no, like I said, when I was doing it, it was I wasn't thinking about who was going to see it. The anchor, yeah, it represents strength and just be strong, you know, but the strength that can represent can also show the strength of an anchor in itself. And I think when you relate an anchor to, like, other topics, the meaning of it changes. And for me it was pulling someone down, so it was the strength. It wasn't a positive strength. The anchor was completely submerged.
And how did you feel when you were creating this art?
Well, obviously, I was driven to create it, like me feeling in such a bad place. It wasn't a sense of just me coming up with a great idea and putting it down on a page. It was emotions that were pouring out. Like, I didn't have a plan. It was just me and my sketchbook, and I guess I just started with a figure that represented me, which would have been the face and the head, and then as I kept going, it was sort of just putting the anchor in to represent a weight that was pulling me down. And I guess it was quite upsetting because I was sort of come to terms with how low I was feeling. Like the more I painted the water behind her, it was like the more the water was filling up the page and how deep I actually felt. And I don't know, the piece sort of sucked me in a little because it made me realise that I do feel like a loss of control, and it's something everyone goes through, and depending on how they're feeling, I think the hand that is controlling this anchor, this weight that's pulling you down, can be anything to anyone. Everyone has a unique problem or issue in their lives that they feel sometimes they can't overcome, and for me it was a burst of emotions, and it was so many things. And I just think seeing it up, and anyone, especially in this community, like, you don't know who's walking around and what they're feeling. So when they walk by my piece, maybe they'll look at it in a different way and see the hand as something else. Like, it could be anything to anyone, and that's what I love about it.
Okay, so I did another paste up on mental health, and does the feelings that you got from your puppet piece relate to your mental health piece?
So, do my puppet and mental health piece relate to each other?
Yeah.
Well, my mental health piece was my original paste up. So, I went into this project thinking I was only creating one piece of art for one topic, which was covering the stigma in mental health. And then the other paste up of the puppet I created through emotion. I didn't have a theme at the start, it was just how I felt. And I think that piece wouldn't have been created if my mental health was brilliant. Obviously it was very low at the time, so I do think it relates to my other paste up, because my other paste up is mental health and how bad it is for someone and how they can feel, and like just representing it through a girl and such a blank expression and like the mellow colours around her. It was all quite like, they were fragile colours, and just shows how fragile a human can be. And then with all of these like black and white voices and emotions and expressions on their faces clawing through their skin, it's like, it's that aspect of me that I want to let out, and everyone else in the school has their demons, you know?
So you kind of meant by the colours is, because they're more kind of cold colours, that would make the sadness effect, that would make you feel sad.
Yeah.
So that's what you're kind of trying to get across there as well.
Yeah, on the outside of the piece, the girl, like, her expression's blank. There's, like, her eyes are very symbolic, like they're just cold, and I think to portray that better, having those cold colours around her and surrounding the rest of her body was a good effect to bring out the real sadness that a person can be going through, yet walks through the halls every day. Like, you don't know who's walking by and how they're feeling. And I think having the symbol of someone taking the girl's pulse, just showing how lifeless she actually is,
and how cold she is as well.
Yeah, and how people are just, they're trying to check if she's alive, shake her up a little bit, you know, try to get something out of her, but it's all inside. And that's what I meant by the black and white expressions. Like, it's so emotions screaming from inside
she's
her.
Afraid of showing her, like, her true self to others.
Well, yeah, it is a sense of being afraid, because I created the paste up on the topic of the stigma of mental health, which is the disgrace and discrimination of people who are suffering with mental health issues, and how they can feel isolated and they're neglected sometimes, you know. So having that negative energy towards people who are suffering only makes someone want to hide more. If you were to have a bad day, you'd have several people in one of your classes like being like annoyed that you're feeling sad, like they're just like it's inconvenient for them, and that they think it's a bit pathetic that you're feeling that way. But I think it's a disgrace for, in this day and age, for people to still be thinking like that. Like, you're allowed to have your bad days, you're allowed to feel like you're not okay. You're allowed to have problems. But what's stopping you overcoming them is having people pushing you down deeper and deeper into them. And you can't let it out, because every time you do, you're judged by it. And it's the stigma behind it. And if it was to decrease by even the smallest of a percentage, I think there'd be a lot more people getting help for how they feel and being open about how they feel. And that's just, it relates back to the puppet.
So what you're saying is that society has an effect for how you act, as in people don't want you, or people comment on how you feel if you're upset, and you don't want, like, you're kind of against that.
I think society, a large mass of it, does have an effect on someone that would cause them to bottle up their emotions. And that's all to do with the stigma. And I think it's also the lack of education to do with mental illness. Like, it's almost like we're just, any negative word that is out there in the world, it's like it all just thrown into one pile with feeling mentally ill. And it's like it's just, they're making a big negative. Mental health shouldn't be negative. It should be positive. People should be uplifting and trying to help, rather than neglecting you when you're feeling like that and leaving you alone to deal with it yourself. I think it should just get as much attention as someone who has a broken arm or a broken leg, because for someone who is suffering with mental health problems, they could feel like they have a broken arm for all of this time, but this other person with a broken arm is getting help like in a split second. But while the rest of us are suffering in silence and keeping it to ourselves because other people just don't think it's a big enough deal. So I think it's right to label mental health as a disease, because it shows that
the person, not in a negative way.
No, it shows that the person doesn't have control over it. You can't just stop a disease. It takes time and it takes treatment for any disease. And I think with mental health, like, treatment is needed, and you need to acknowledge if you need that help. And I think if we treat it like a disease, it will get more attention, which it needs. And I think people are very uneducated with mental health, because it's just the lack of knowledge drags you down, because you feel like nobody understands you. And that's what I wanted to portray with my paste up. I wanted people to know that it is common to feel like it's all these emotions are inside of you.
By creating that paste up, did you have on your mind, if you're feeling down, do you want someone to help you, come and help you, or would you like to stay alone? Or would you want someone to help? If you're like feeling down, do you want them to come up and ask you, oh, how do you feel? Do you need this? Do you need that? Or do you want to be alone when you're feeling down?
I think everyone has their reactions to different issues, and I guess it depends on the intensity of the situation, but I think it's important to have people in your life that would take a split second out of their day to ask you how you're doing. Yes. Or even like saying hello to someone in the morning can do so much for someone, because you have no idea how someone's feeling and walking the halls. And I think, yeah, you want people to ask you if you're okay, but at the same time, you'd want someone who understands to ask you. Because if you have people who are uneducated asking you if you're okay, I think that it sort of drives them away from you. Because it's like they're thinking, oh, well, she's never okay, so I just won't ask her, you know? Yeah. Like, I'm just going to get the same answer.
What I noticed is when I talk to someone, they never ask you how you feel. It's just that you hello. Like, they don't really care about how you feel. The only thing is they're so self-centered that they only care about themselves. Is that what you kind of come across as well? Or?
Well, no, I wouldn't put it down to being self-centered. I just think it's the awareness. Like, I know there's so much that revolves around mental health, and like, I agree that there are posters out there, posters in schools, like we have Mental Health Week and mental awareness, and like, yeah, I think there needs to be more education on mental health, because in the long run, when people start learning more about how people feel and why they feel this way, and that it isn't always like intentional, I think that the stigma will reduce, and in turn people will be coming out of their shells and want to talk about how they feel. But I don't think it's down to people being self-centered. I think it's just the lack of knowledge.
Do you also think that the community or the people around us have an effect how you feel?
Your surroundings are the most important thing that you should prioritise when you're going through these phases. And if you're feeling like this, I think if you don't have a good support system around you, you're just going to be burying your thoughts and keeping it all to yourself. And that's why if there's a larger mass of people who are a good environment, I think there won't be any need to pick your friends wisely, because everyone will know that, you know, you have to be kind, you know? Like, I know, like, in an ideal world, you want everyone to be kind and, you know, understanding and, you know, almost as if you want them to read your mind sometimes, but you can't, things like that don't happen. So I think getting society up to a better place in which they have a better understanding is the best approach to go, and letting out deep awareness on what really goes on behind mental health will allow that to emerge over time.